Right now, we're joined by Max Wilbert. Max Wilbert is an activist, organizer, writer, wilderness guide. He has been part of a grassroots political work for nearly 20 years. He is the co-author of Bright Green Lies, How the Environmental Movement Lost Its Way and What We Can Do About It. And he's the co-founder of Protect Thacker Pass. We're going to tell you all about that. Also joining us and deeply engaged at Thacker Pass and resisting this lithium plant is Will Falk. He's an attorney, writer, and he is now representing the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. They've joined a lawsuit, I guess you could say, already in progress, trying to restrain the digging of this mine on indigenous land, sacred land. You've heard about this kind of battle before. You know, we took the team to Standing Rock. We're watching this one very closely. This is I think it's in California, right near the Nevada border. Welcome, Max Wilbert. Welcome, Will Falk. It's good to have you with us.
Great to be here. Really glad to be with you.
Well, let me start with you, Max. We're glad to have you. Give us an overview of, explain exactly where this is happening. Just give us an overview of how this battle has unfolded. Right now it's in the courts, but set the scene, please.
Sure. So this is a giant proposed lithium mine. It's actually in the state of Nevada. It's right up near the border with Oregon. To make the location understandable to folks, if you've ever driven over the Sierras and through Reno and headed east as if you were going to Salt Lake City, a couple hours east of Reno, if you headed north towards the Oregon border on Highway 95, you'd be getting close to the Thacker Pass area. And what's proposed there is a massive strip mine. It's essentially 28 square miles of land that are under threat for this mine project that could last for almost 50 years, potentially 100 years if they expand it as the company plans on. And this mine would cause a lot of harm to the wildlife in the area. There are a lot of sensitive species in the region, including the greater sage grouse, that iconic bird of the sagebrush habitat. And it's also a very significant area for Native people in the region, due, not least to a massacre that took place in 1865 when the U.S. cavalry killed between 31 and 70 Paiute men, women, and children in Thacker Pass.
All right, and so how did this bubble up in the recent past? How did this get to where it is now? There have been a number of battles. There are a number of tribes engaged. Just say a little bit more about who's involved, who the players are.
Sure. Well, I became aware of this mine a couple years ago when I was researching for my book and writing about the problems with lithium. We're being sold this narrative that electric cars are going to help save the planet. But if you actually look at the science, electric cars don't have that big of a greenhouse gas benefit. I think global warming is a huge problem. We can't keep going with this fossil fuel car culture that we have. But simply, if you look at the data, electric cars aren't a great solution to that problem. So I learned about Thacker Pass and started to get involved in the fight back in January of last year when Will and me set up camp on the site of the mine and decided to stand against it. Since then, a lot more people have gotten involved in the opposition. We've seen a local rancher file a lawsuit against the mine that came in the winter of last year as well. And then soon afterwards, 4 environmental groups filed a lawsuit against the mine. And myself and Will here got into some conversations with some of the tribes in the area and started learning about the cultural significance of the region And that's when the Reno Sparks Indian Colony stepped forward and decided to join in the lawsuit as well from a tribal angle. And now the Burns Paiute tribe is involved, and the Winnemucca Indian Colony has just recently filed to join the lawsuit as well.
All right, so there's expanding interest and people are concerned, and this really is one of those battles of the future. Joining us, as we said, is Will Falk. He's an attorney, a writer, and you represent the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. Will Falk, tell us what they have asked you to do. Why have they asked you to get involved? What are their concerns and fears in terms of the damage? Are these sacred grounds?
Yeah, these are very sacred grounds. In fact, there have been 2 massacres in Thacker Pass. Paiute oral history tells the story of a time when sometime in the past, Paiute hunters were off in the next range over hunting. And when they came back to their village that was there in Thacker Pass, and they found the people that didn't go hunting with them massacred with their intestines pulled out and strung across the sagebrush. And that had such a rotten smell. And the Thacker Pass is shaped like a crescent moon, that they gave the name to Thacker Pass in Paiute, Pahimaha, which means rotten moon in Paiute. So Thacker Pass has long been known as this sacred massacre site in Paiute culture. But then again, as Max was saying, on September 12th, 1865, federal employees, I want to make that very clear, federal employees massacred between 30 and 70 Paiute men, women, and children in Thacker Pass as part of what historians call the Snake War. The Snake War was primarily fought over miners encroaching on Paiute and Shoshone territories. Here we are in 2022 now. The federal government is trying to destroy the evidence of that massacre site by placing an open pit lithium mine on top of the graves of 70 massacred Paiute people. So the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, it could be kind of interesting for your listeners. There is no law that gives an Indian tribe the power to veto a construction project like this on public lands. So this project is completely on federal BLM land. And despite the fact that there are over 1,000 cultural resource sites in Thacker Pass where BLM has found artifacts created by the ancestors of my clients, where we do know that these as many as 70 Paiutes were massacred, and where Paiute oral history describes another massacre, as well as the sacredness of the land itself. It's a place that is home to very many golden eagles, which my clients consider directly connected to the Creator. It's a place that people have been going to gather traditional medicines for millennia. It's a place where there's a big obsidian quarry, where traditional peoples have harvested obsidian for, again, millennia. Despite all of this, the only right that the Reno Sparks Indian Colony has is to be consulted about this project before BLM goes ahead and destroys Thacker Pass. And what we're primarily arguing in this case is that the Bureau of Land Management didn't consult, even by its own definition, any Indian tribe about this project, despite there probably being 12 or 15 tribes that consider this area sacred. So we are trying to force the BLM to reopen its permitting process, to actually sit down with the tribes and engage in meaningful consultation about the sacredness of Thacker Pass, the historic and cultural properties that are there in Thacker Pass, before they can proceed with this mine. So that's primarily what the litigation is geared towards, and we are right in the thick of the fight right now.
So you say they failed in terms of consulting. Did they? Has there been how had they? If they were required to do that, have they lied about it? Have they lied publicly? How have they misled the public? Do they claim that they did consult with the tribes? Did they consult with a couple of members of the tribe? What's the situation there?
Yeah, so I think it's the White House Council on Economic Development has put together a study that says that from the time that federal agencies file a notice of intent to prepare what's called an environmental impact statement, which is required in these big projects like this, to the time that they actually issue the final permit, what's called the record of decision, on average that takes 3.5 years. This project was the notice of intent was filed, and 11 months later the record of decision was filed. The primary public commenting period of this during this project was set to begin in late March of 2020, and we all know what happened with the biggest pandemic the world has seen in 100 years, which specifically harmed the reservations. I mean, native reservations were hit disproportionately hard by COVID-19. Well, at the time that that happened, the Advisory Council on Historic Properties, which is a federal agency that helps other federal agencies understand how to consult with the public and Indian tribes about cultural resources, suggested to BLM that you should pause all your tribal consultation right now, because the tribes are going to have a horrible time trying to engage in meaningful consultation with you right now. Tribal offices are closed. Most tribal councils are isolating. It's just going to be really hard for them to really explain to you the importance of what's here. Despite that recommendation, sorry, did you want to interrupt me?
Go on, please, go on.
BLM in July of 2020, under the Trump administration, decided to fast track the project, which meant really expediting the public consultation period. So originally BLM identified 3 tribes that they felt like should be consulted about this project: the Summit Lake Paiute tribe, the Fort McDermott Paiute and Shoshone tribe, and the Winnemucca Indian Colony. And BLM has been claiming that they have consulted with those tribes, but we have now seen the administrative record, and the extent of this consultation is some letters that BLM sent to tribal offices. And BLM's own definition of consultation says that sending a letter to a tribal council office and receiving no response is not a sufficient effort to initiate tribal consultation. And all 3 of these tribes, after the record of decision was issued, when they finally heard about this project, all wrote to BLM and explained that we didn't even know about this project. We were not consulted about this. And BLM should have known that even in the best of times, it takes the tribe a little bit longer to consult than other organizations, and they demanded adequate consultation. Of course, BLM is trying to get this lithium mine in. Lithium Nevada Corporation, I think by now has raised well over $1 billion in capital for this mine, and they're cracking the whip, and they want this mine to get going and start making their shareholders profits. And from my client's perspective, and from the other tribes that are involved, they're going to destroy this place without ever actually talking with the tribes.
Well, there is going to be. We have been thinking about this situation, this story, as the next Standing Rock, and the battle for these kinds of resources, and what the government is going to be willing to do in terms of commerce. It's crucial. We just have a minute or two left, but Max Wilbert, again, remind people, if the government has its way, what will this land look like in 20 or 30 years?
Well, first, I want people to imagine how beautiful and special Thacker Pass is right now. This mountain pass covered in sagebrush, sitting at about a mile above sea level, with incredible dark, starry night skies and herds of pronghorn antelope, birds up on the hillside, golden eagles circling overhead, the tracks of sage grouse wandering through the snow in between the sagebrush. And imagine all of that bulldozed. Imagine nearly 18,000 acres destroyed, bulldozed, and dug into pits, turned into chemical waste disposal facilities, turned into sulfuric acid processing plants and access roads and fuel storage depots. This is the reality of mining and extractive projects like this, and it's what's coming for Thacker Pass unless we can stop it. And our love for the land is really what is driving our efforts to protect this place.
Well, we're going to stay with it, and we're going to show up there with our equipment, and we're going to report from eye level, because we do see this as an incredible battle, environmental battle, in this 21st century battle to save the environment. I want to thank both of you, Max Wilbert and Will Falk. Please come back, keep us posted on this battle, and as I say, we're going to bring the Flashpoints team into the field and be with you. Thank you both for joining us today on Flashpoints. You are listening to Flashpoints on Pacifica Radio.